Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Tonight we're going to dig into Wiremock. So it's a cool product. It's actually open and it's open source. So it's a cool framework, a library, whatever you will call it, where you can spin up a mock server that you can use to pretend that you are integrating to some external system. So that means that if you have some external dependencies and maybe you don't have that accessible always, you don't have this external system accessible always. Maybe it's a system that is being developed at the same time as you are trying to create your client to it. Then you can actually spin up a Wiremock server, and then you can tell this server exactly how it should react to a request. So you can say when you request with this data, then you want this response to be returned. This also gives you a possibility and an option to actually, or not an option, you should always create unit tests, but you can actually create integration tests where you use Wiremock, where you use the Wiremock server instead of calling out into and hoping that the test or development environment for whatever you're integrating to is up right now. Then you can then spin up a Wiremock server, and of course this Wiremock server that you spin up, you will have it to follow the rules and the contract that you have agreed upon with your third-party vendor, of course. So this means that now you can suddenly test what happens if you suddenly get a 404 HTTP status code 404 back instead of a 200. So you can test all of these error codes. What happens if you get a 500 back because there's an internal server error? All of this situation can now be tested with Wiremock. And they have a cool website right here. They also have some commercial products, like they have the cloud solution, etc. I will probably make another video about the cloud part. But it's made so you can Wiremock. It's made so you can integrate it into your Java program. You can also spin up a standalone server, and you can also run it as Docker. And you can also run it with Spring Boot. There's a plugin for Spring Boot, which is quite cool. If you want to use Spring Boot, then I would recommend that you do not follow the guide. You do not follow the Java usage guide on Wiremock's webpage, because you'll run into trouble if you're running Spring Boot. However, if you're running Spring Boot and you use the Spring Boot plugin instead, and I'm using Gradle for this project right here. So let me just show where it is. So it is right here, Wiremock integrations, Wiremock Spring Boot, and the current version is 3.02. If you add that, then you will be happy, and then everything is fine. So in this project right here, I've created this with IntelliJ. I pressed File, New Project. Then I chose Spring Initializer. I chose Gradle with Groovy, and I chose Java 23. I think it was 23. Let me just check. Yes, it was 23. And then I pressed next right here. And if you don't have the Java, then I will recommend you to download the Azul version. Then that's at least the one I like to use. At some point there was some license issues with Oracle. I don't know if they're still there, but that's another story. Okay, so then I added the Spring Web, and then I added the H2 database right here, and then I added the JPA support right here, and then I also added Lombok so we can so we don't have to write so much boilerplate code. Then I press create, and then I got this beautiful project right here. Okay, so I've also used this project for my zero padding service test. You can watch that. You can watch that if you feel like it. That's an earlier video. But what we are doing right now, we want to communicate to a space station and see if our spaceship, or if different spaceships are allowed to dock right now. So that's actually our situation. I'm just inventing something with space. You can hear that, of course. So we have this. This is our service, the space station's protocol droid, and let us just name it service just for fun, so we know that it's a service. So yes, please rename it. So now it's a service, okay. And this service right here, it communicates to the space station server. Right now, I've put in localhost. Of course, this should be configurable. And what you want to do, so we will do that. We'll make it configurable. And then we have a REST template right here, and we have made a bean out of REST template, and this is actually not necessary. So The reason why I like to have the REST template as a bean is if I want to configure it specifically, like if I want to configure it with something so it reacts in a specific way, then I can do that by defining a bean. But there's no need for that to be inside the service right here. So let me just create a REST template config like this. So this is a configuration instead, configuration like this, and then we will place the REST template in there because it does not belong, and it can just confuse us in the Space Station Protocol Droid service. So here we have the service we inject. We're using constructor injection right here because we are adding the add required Arch constructor right here. That means that we are injecting the REST template so we can call something with HTTP and get a response. And here we have this method right here that says is spaceship allowed to dock. Right now it returns a boolean. We're going to change that so it actually returns a real object instead. It takes a spaceship ID, and what does it do? It calls REST template get for object, and then the Space Station server URL, and then we say add the spaceship ID as part of the URL right here, and then add spaceships, and then dock. That's just some random URL that I made. Oh, now instead of Boolean class, then we want to add our own response. We want to create a much cooler response than just a just a Boolean object right here. So, and then we are providing this argument right here. So that means that we will have this is a URL template, as it's called right here. So this is a URL template. That means that all of the stuff that you add right here that will then be replaced. The URL will then be replaced with all the stuff. So yeah. Just as you're used to with Spring Boot. It's quite cool, and templating is of course used a lot of places. So now, first of all, this should not be a Boolean. This should be spaceship allowed response. So we want to create something new right here. All right. Create class. Yes. Thank you very much. Just create right there. Yes. So what do we want? We want a private Boolean is allowed to dock. Right here, so that is one of them, and we want to have add data on this one. This is again a lombok annotation, so we will get the getters, the setters, the equal to, the hash code. We will get all of those things implemented automatically by lombok, and then we want to have something else. We also want the ID, spaceship ID, and we also. So this is what we get returned from the space station, right? So in the request, we were just using the URL to say which spaceship that we want to, and then we get is it allowed to dock, yes or no, and we get the spaceship back. Maybe we also want a timestamp or something like that. Date, local date time in the spaceship, in the space station. Sorry. So local date time, and then we have timestamp like this. And we could also set it to something default, local date time .now. Then we don't have to set it later on. We also want to add the builder pattern just because it's much cooler to look at. Then when we are creating instances of this response, then it's much easier to do so. We need to do that with the wiremock in just a couple of minutes. Yes, bear with me. Spaceship response. So now we are saying that we want to take whatever JSON that is being returned from the space station. We want that automatically to be casted or converted by Jackson from JSON into a Java object of this type right here, spaceship allowed response right here. And that's quite cool. So we have one problem. That's because I've already started creating the test. I think it's Control-Shift-T, isn't it? Or did I not add that? Yes, Control-Shift-T, then you can go to the test. And if you don't have a test, then you can press create new test. And then, then you're happy. So let's just go to the test. I've cheated a little bit. So, I've already created this test right here. You can see I've been playing a bit around with it, but what we want to add right here, we want to add an Spring Boot test. We want to enable Wiremock. This is how we do that. So we enable Wiremock, and then we configure the Wiremock. What is happening right here? When we create this annotation, configure Wiremock, then a new Wiremock server is actually spun up, and it has this port that we have chosen right here. It can also be a dynamically assigned one. Then you need to fetch, of course, the ports. You can fetch that with you can use wiring, auto wiring to fetch the port, and then you can use that for your test afterwards. For now, I'm just going to hard code it for this example right here. This is just the basic Wiremock stuff. Maybe we will do some more advanced Wiremock stuff later on. Name, this is just a logical name. It does not matter what we have right here. So, and here, this is my test down here. Then I'm auto wiring the service. So this is the service that is being wired in. Then I call before each. This means that this code right here is being created. This is I'm importing Wiremock statically. Let me just show that right here. So you can see here, import static, and then Wiremock, and then a cool asterisk. So then it means that all of the Wiremock, all of the static, then those are automatically being imported right here. So here we have a static method, stop mappings. And what that does is that we will actually create a stop for, and then we need to use, and in this situation, it is a get request that we want to mock. So here we're actually doing all of the setup. So here we actually say, if we have a get request against our Wiremock service that has this URL equal to, and then myship1, and then spaceship doc, then you should just return, OK. That means HTTP code 200. And then the body should not be this body here. No. It should be the spaceship allowed response.builder. That is allowed to dock. Yes, that is true. Spaceship ID. That should again be myship1. It just returns the same spaceship. And then we say is allowed. Then we say timestamp. Let us just ignore that. When we say build. And of course, right now the body right here. You can see right here it needs to be a string, but we are returning right here. And of course that's a little bit annoying, but it's not that difficult. So we will just say new object mapper. This is the Jackson object mapper that we can use right here. New object mapper, then we will say write value as string. Okay, that's quite cool. Yes, Jackson is cool. Spring Boot is cool. I'm talking about it, so of course I'm also cool. What does it say right here? There might be an exception. Add exception to the method signature. When you have something, that's a cool thing about writing test. Just add it to the method signature, then you will get then you'll be blessed with the exception later on if there's something wrong. Okay, so that was one stop. What about another stop? Can we create two stops, Mike? Yes, we can create multiple stops if we want to. So that means if we say myship2 right here, then we should not be allowed, false. We could also say that we want to test the error scenarios, but for now we are just saying, OK. As you can see right there, we chose OK as the response type. So now we have to go change our test right here. So first of all, we will say is allowed to dock. And then we get this response right here, response one right here. Is allowed to, and we use assert J because it's much cooler. It's much more readable. So we say assertions, and it's part of Spring Boot already. So just use assert J. If you, of course, it's still fine if you use the JUnit 5, and you can see this JUnit 5 because Jupiter is the 5th planet in the solar system. So that's why they chose the Jupiter package. You can see here they have it inside the package name. Then they have Jupiter. So we assert that something, and what that is something that is the response one dot. Should I spell it correctly? Yes, of course, that will help a lot. So here we will assert that is allowed to dock is true. Yeah, that's exactly what we assert. We can also assert something else. We can also assert that response one dot get spaceship is equal to, and then we can, then we should have a variable, of course. We should use a variable right here, string spaceship one equal to this, and then we can make a spaceship two also. We know we're going to use that in just a minute, so I'll just place it down here. And then we say spaceship one, or spaceship one right here. And we also say spaceship one here. And let us just outcomment this so we don't get a warning. Okay, so let's see if it still works. Right now we have hard coded it always to use local port, local host, and this port right here. This means that, of course, in a real scenario you would have different profiles, Spring Boot profiles. You would have an application dash production, of course, where you would set that URL to something else. If you haven't seen my videos about how to configure your Spring Boot application, then do that, because I'm not sure. I don't think I will set it in this video. Maybe I will. So I actually don't know. That depends on how long I've been rambling with this example right here. So let us just continue right here. Let us just press play right here. It depends on, I'm trying to aim for the videos to be around 15-20 minutes long. And now I'll press play, and that, let us see what it says right here. Let us see what it says. It's starting up now. Okay, so what happened right here? So there was an error now. So we have this one right here. We say, could not extract response, no suitable HTTPS message converter, could not convert, and it is for octet stream, application octet stream, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So I think it was actually let us go to this response right here. Let's delete the timestamp just to begin with. And let us run the application again. Let us see what happens now. And you can also make criteria on what should be in the header to give in order to give some kind of response. What does it say right here? Body. So this is the body. This is a string that we actually get back. Okay. So we get, what does it say now? HTTP, no content type, blah blah. It should be application XML. It should be XML, unknown content type exception, match response, blah blah, accept JSON, and should we also add that? Then we'll say okay. Boom. So it actually failed. It fails on this line right here. Try to call right here, and it will get an error because the response is not XML. Unknown content type. Yeah, it's because we should actually return. So here where it says okay, that is the string body. What else can we do here? With header. With header right here, let us try to see if we can do something with that. So then we will say HTTP header dot content type, and that should then be equal to application JSON. And of course we want it with, we also want it on this response right here. Let us see if it works now. So now we are returning that the content type is application JSON. I think it took a default. Yes. Wow, that was lucky, right? That was lucky. The demo was just about to get very embarrassing, but it was saved. It was saved in the last minute. Here we got So I'll test the screen, and of course when I test the screen, this is the match. And the cool thing about this wiremock, is that it's very verbose in what is happening. So let us say that we chose an ID that did not exist, then we would actually get a cool output that said nothing actually matches this URL right here. So it is very verbose. It's very easy to use. It is meant for testing. So this is the cool part right here. And so we got the response. Now let us try to create another test. Spaceship 2. Of course, we could just create another. Of course, we could have put it into the could put it into the first test, but now we are creating a second test. It's much cooler, right? So we say here, and instead of spaceship 1 right here, we just say spaceship. Instead of response, then right here, then we could just create a response right here. And of course, this could be implemented in multiple other ways. We could also you can actually use some templating in your test also, so you have, so you just exchange some of the variables. And of course, this part right here, it could have been, we could have extracted that to a new method. I'm not going to do that right now. So we now have number 2, and then just to begin with, let us just see it fail, because we are still asserting that it is allowed to dock, but spaceship number 2 is not allowed to dock. So let us just see right here. So here we have it. Our test is failing. Why is it failing? Because expecting value to be true, but it was actually false. Okay. That's not good, but it's actually because we should actually expect it to be false, because my ship 2 is not allowed to dock. So let us run it again. We will set it to 2, and then we'll see what happens. Here we have example 2, and now it's green. The test is green. We are very happy. We are awesome. We, now we can create our pull request, but. Now here comes the strong part about Wiremock. Because let's say that we have a not found example. So not found. Because in this situation right here, now we are going to give it a ship that does not exist. My ship does not exist. Ship does not exist. Like this. So what would happen in this situation, right? Now we can test that situation, because we can actually determine, let's say that we agreed on that it should give us a fallback, then we could actually react to that. First of all, now we just get an ugly exception. We get this 44 not found, and that is because there was no URL that actually matched that. But now we get that exception, so that means that we can go to our spaceship service, and now we can actually change the code, because we know that there is a slight chance of this code actually to end up with a HTTP client error exception. And this is HTTP exception right here. And then we can actually ask if HTTP client exception dot get status code. And here we can also say is 404, and we can also say int, let us give us the real code value. If that equals to 44, then we can actually do something special right here, right? So now we can actually handle this. So that means that then we can return a nice response if that is what we want to. Of course, we can also throw a new exception and then say, hey, we did not expect this situation to happen. There's a lot of things wrong, and else, and of course, you will get in trouble with SonarLint if you throw a new runtime exception. It wants you to create a new, your own custom exception always. But we are not going to do that right now, so we'll just add this right here. So we'll just wrap the existing exception, and we'll throw it once again. In this situation right here, if it's 4.4, then we will have to return. Then we can return something hard-coded. So then we will say spaceship allowed build. Could also be is allowed false if you did not find it. We could also extend our response, so now it actually has an error message. So if something went wrong, then we can have a string error. So an error occurred. Of course, it could be a boolean plus a message right here. Yeah, okay, let's do that. So we have an error. This is a boolean, which is usually false. Private boolean. Then we have a string. This is an error message right here. Okay, so then we can then set the builder is allowed to dock. No. And here we have the ship ID. Of course, we'll just return the same ship ID again. Then we can say the error. Yes, there was an error in this situation right here. And we can say the error message is the spaceship was not found, right? So this is something that we actually return from our service, right? Because usually you would have a kind of you would have a contract and a response. You have a contract with your third party API, and you cannot just in most situations you cannot just have them return something else or add some fields. It's not always you can do that, at least. Of course, sometimes it's a corporation, and then of course you can just ask them to actually add this for you, and then they will actually add error, true, and spaceship was not found. Maybe they would always return 200 instead of 404, so you have to handle different HTTP codes, which is actually quite annoying in general. So if they would always return 200 and then just say that the spaceship was not found, then in most cases, that would actually make the coding much easier, right? And the handling of it much easier. But oh no, then it's not REST. In REST, you have to use the real HTTP codes, right, to express what is actually wrong. Yes. Or maybe you could just choose something that is pragmatic and actually works in your situation. Okay, but now we have changed the code. Let us go back to our test. Because now we will go back to our Control-Shift-T, go back to my test. Yes, thank you very much. Then we go back to the test, and now we will say, now we can go, in the situation where the ship is not found. Now we can assert that it's false. This is false, that's fine. And we can assert the correct spaceship ID is on. That is also fine. And then we will assert that the error is actually true, right? Is error, yes, true. Is true. And then we can assert also that the error message, then we can assert that is equal to, and then some string. I'm not going to, I will copy paste it from the, from first time we run it, then we get an error because now this expectation is not what is actually happening. So then I can just copy paste that string. It's a small trick if you're writing test, and you can see here, oh, now we got an error. What is happening right here? What happened right here? What did it say? It said, let's go down into the bottom right here. It says how expected SDF something, and there were, but this was the real value right here. So then we will copy that, place that into expectation. We will run that again, and now we should have a green test. As usual, I will place this code on my GitHub account, so you can just get it there, and just clone it from there. No problems in that. Also, thank you to those who want to improve my code and create a pull request. A couple of once in a while sends a pull request, and this is from the Wiremock server. It says, hey, the URL does not match, so that is why you got a 404 back. But this is perfect because in this situation we actually wanted a 404 back. And now our test is green because all of our expectations is met. Let us say that we actually wanted something else. Let's say that we, instead of reacting to something else, then we could, it's possible to configure in a lot of weird ways, but I think this is actually enough for today. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you for all of your cool comments. It gives me energy every time you write a comment. Also, sometimes when it's a complaint about something that is not, when I said something that is not true or something like that, it's good, and it helps other developers also. So thank you very much for watching. Have a great evening, and hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.